So maybe we should actually start with you reading your reflection on this particular chapter, right versus wrong, right? And then we will read what Anurag Tripathi has to say and go on to today's portion, right?
Okay, ma'am.
So, good afternoon, everybody who has already logged in and joined us for the reading of Wanted Backbencher Last Ranker Teacher. Last week, I was not there, but Sandeep sir read with all of you and completed the chapter Right versus Wrong. And it was a very, very valuable chapter for teachers because it focused on how to control adolescent behavior. ये बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण एक चैप्टर था हमारे लिए जो हमने लास्ट शनिवार को हमने पिछले शनिवार को जिसे हमने कंप्लीट किया है और इस शनिवार को हम अगला चैप्टर पढ़ेंगे टू कॉपी और नॉट टू कॉपी है ये और उसे पढ़ने से पहले हम कुछ जो रिफ्लेक्शंस आए हैं उसको पढ़ के देखेंगे और पहले मैं रिक्वेस्ट करूंगी कि स्नेहा अपना रिफ्लेक्शन पढ़ें क्योंकि उन्होंने भी अपना रिफ्लेक्शन दिया है यहाँ पे राइट वर्सेस रॉन्ग चैप्टर पे तो उनको पढ़ने देंगे उसके बाद में हम दूसरे रिफ्लेक्शन पे जाएंगे स्नेहा ओवर टू यू
Okay. So I have written the reflection on the chapter Right versus Wrong. After reading the chapter with Sandeep sir, I reflected a lot on how alienation can affect people, especially students and teenagers. I feel that when someone is punished through detention, suspension, and expulsion, it can sometimes make them feel even more disconnected rather than understood. I think alienation becomes harmful because when people stop feeling connected to others or even to themselves, they begin searching for ways to escape their emotions instead of understanding them. I've personally seen people around me of my age who constantly want to escape their reality instead of facing it. I have noticed how some people never really sit with themselves or understand what they are feeling. Instead, they try to run away from emotions through smoking, drugs, or other harmful habits, often because of peer pressure, stress, loneliness, or the desire to feel accepted. At first, it may seem like fun or way to bond with friends, but over time, I've seen how it affects them physically and mentally. Some people around me smoke so regularly that even walking for a long time becomes difficult for them. They struggle with stamina and cannot even climb a short mountain path without getting exhausted or breathless. Seeing this has made me realize how temporary escapes can slowly take away a person's health, energy, and connection with themselves. At the same time, I've also realized how important personal and social development is. I believe that having healthy bonds, meaningful relationships, and activities that help us grow can protect us from feeling isolated. When people feel accepted and connected in a healthy way, they are less likely to depend on harmful habits to feel a sense of belongingness. Personally, I try to focus on hobbies and self growth instead of escaping my emotions. I engage in creative activities and things that help me grow personally while also connecting with people socially in meaningful ways. For me, hobbies and personal development are healthier ways of coping because they help me understand myself better instead of avoiding reality. This chapter on right versus wrong made me realize that true connection, both with ourselves and with others, can help us deal with struggles in a much healthier way.
Thank you, Sneha. That was a wonderful reflection. And coming from a youngster like you who's closer to the age of adolescence, it is very valuable. We noticed that you have actually understood what it is to be alienated. अकेले कर देना किसी को कोई सोल्यूशन नहीं है किसी को डिसमिस करना किसी को क्लास से बाहर निकाल देना बहुत देर के लिए और उनको अकेला रखना एक सोल्यूशन नहीं है किसी भी प्रॉब्लम के लिए और कई बार बच्चे भी सोचते हैं कि हमें अकेले रहना चाहिए एंड देन दे गेट इनटू ऑल दीज हैबिट्स एंड आई रियली लाइक दैट एग्जांपल ऑफ द smokers that you have given Sneha because these habits while they might bring a temporary relaxation and a temporary satisfaction they actually do harm to the body and to the mind, and it brings in a lot of dependency. तो
Hmm.
एडोलेसेंट चिल्ड्रन ये जो करते हैं ये दो तीन कारणों से करते हैं। एक तो उन्हें लगता है कि हम बड़े हीरो बन गए हैं, जिसे अंग्रेजी में एक शब्द है मैचो। ओके, तो ये मैचो फीलिंग के लिए वो शो ऑफ करना चाहते हैं कि आई कुडंट केयर, मुझे कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता, दुनिया मेरे बारे में जो भी सोचे इट इज ऑल राइट।
Hmm.
And nowadays you will see that a lot of girls are getting into this because उनको लगता है कि हमें एक नया फ्रीडम मिल गया है, कि हम अगर स्मोक करते हैं तो ये हमारे फ्रीडम का एक क्या है, दिखावा है कि हमें फ्रीडम मिला है, हम ऐसा भी कर सकते हैं, हमें कोई रोक नहीं सकता, एटसेट्रा एटसेट्रा। और ये जो एडोलेसेंट का ये सब बिहेवियर है, ये इसलिए है कि वो एक तरीके से रिवोल्ट करना चाहते हैं, रिबेल करना चाहते हैं, और एडल्ट्स को दिखाना चाहते हैं कि तुम हमें कुछ नहीं कर सकते हो, right? So that is what we just saw consistently happening in the book, and it needs a lot of understanding. So I am going to go back to one page before the page we have to start to read, and there are a few valuable lines there. Sneha, you can come to, is there another, there is another reflection, I think, right?
Yes, ma'am, but I'm not able to find.
All right, it doesn't matter. So we'll go to copy versus not to copy, and then later on maybe we can read that reflection.
Um,
So before we read that, you bring to the page and display it, I would just like to reiterate one or two things. One is that where schools can control high risk behavior like campus violence and drug abuse by creating a congenial environment that aims at making students feel good and energized, by making school experiences interesting, relevant, and connected. Basically, by keeping students engaged with things that they love to do. ये बहुत बहुत जरूरी है हम सब टीचर्स को समझना कि अगर हमें वायलेंस, इनडिसिप्लिन, कोई भी सब्सटेंस अब्यूज से बच्चों को दूर रखना है, तो एक ऐसा एटमॉस्फेयर क्रिएट करना पड़ेगा, ऐसा वातावरण स्कूल में क्रिएट करना पड़ेगा जिससे कि बच्चों को वो सब चीजें करने का मौका मिले जिसमें उनका मन अच्छी तरह से लगा रहेगा, वो खेल कूद में बिजी रहेंगे, गाने में, पढ़ने में, या किसी भी एक्टिविटी में बिजी रहेंगे जिससे कि उनका मन भटकेगा नहीं, और एक हैप्पी एटमॉस्फेयर रहेगा, तो बच्चे हमारे साथ में बने रहेंगे। Thank you. You found that reflection also, Sneha. So is Mr. Anurag Tripathi here? If he's here, I would like him to read. Otherwise, I shall read it and we shall proceed with today's reading. So he says, building trust-based school cultures to prevent adolescent risk behaviors. The presentation and reading material shared by Sandeep Dutt sir reveal a profound truth about modern education. To truly protect and nurture vulnerable adolescents, school must dismantle rigid curriculum-driven brick walls and prioritize a culture of empathy, reflection, and deep relational trust. When students encounter the intense pressures of adolescence, they may turn to volatile substance abuse, the misuse of everyday items such as diluters, glues, sanitizers, not out of a desire for physical harm, but as a psychological coping mechanism to escape stress, fit in, or gain acceptance among their peers. Traditional punitive measures such as suspension or detention fail to address the root causes of these behaviors. Instead, they often deepen feelings of alienation and isolate children from the very support systems they need. The ultimate antidote to such high risk behaviors lie in building horizontal, trust based relationships and cultivating a congenial, experiential learning environment where young minds feel valued, understood, and energized. By replacing harsh, zero tolerance policies with customized corrective interventions, and open communication with parents, educators, and families, educators can demystify forbidden temptations, reduce the influence of peer pressure, and guide students towards a genuine and safe joy of learning. Very well written by Anurag Tripathi. He is not here, but I hope he will get to hear that we appreciate what he has written, and he reaffirms what I just said a little while ago. It is reiterated that we need to have a good atmosphere in the school. Now let us go on to the next chapter, to copy versus not to copy. And while Sneha is fixing that, I will read the last two lines of the previous chapter. The strength to resist temptation to eat forbidden fruit does not come from threats or instilled fear. The ability to say no only comes from within the child's living in a shelter of love and trust. Okay. So, an atmosphere of love and trust, happiness and joy in the learning space is what we teachers need to focus on building. Let's read further and find out what else this chapter has to offer us. To copy versus not to copy. It was a new day. Roma's father, Sunil, always said a new day brought new luck. As she finished breakfast and got ready to leave for school, Roma thought that, hopefully, the new day would bring good luck to her too. She had submitted her question paper for the midterm exam, scheduled to begin tomorrow. She had also done her part in getting the students ready for the exam. Just yesterday, the project work for Teacher Friend had ended with her junior student teachers earning bonus marks and her need help students seeming more confident. Today was the day for some final magic so that they would not be afraid of the exams. It was the final day of revision, when teachers also briefed their classes on the rules and regulations for the exams. Everyone brought their own stationery. Borrowing was not allowed. Bags, just scroll it up a little bit, Sneha. I can't see. Um, yeah, a bit of, yes, now it's better. Nay, you've gone to the next page. Go back to the previous page, please. Bags were to be kept outside the classroom after the first bell, and mobile phones and calculators were disallowed inside the exam hall. There was to be no textbook on the desk or chit of paper in one's pockets. Roma slung her heavy bag onto her shoulder, wincing at the weight. A teacher's bag is actually a study table, pantry, and vanity case combined. One found cosmetics, rubber bands, hair clips in a lady teacher's bag, a spoon, plenty of pens in a variety of colors, usable and unusable markers and highlighters, erasers, post-its, glue sticks, and correction pen. Also, tissues, a napkin, chocolates distributed by kids celebrating birthdays, a mobile phone, pen drive, spectacles, sunglasses, keys, and plenty of confiscated material like papers, a cricket ball, an MP3 player, etc. It looks like, it sounds like my bag. Bye, Papa. Have a nice day. Roma's words were not reciprocated in her father's usual cheerful way. He was staring at an email on his desktop. What's wrong happened, Papa? Why so worried so early in the morning? She asked, standing at the front door. There is a mail from Windsor Palace Hotel. They will not be renewing their contract with us this year. They are signing up with a new poultry farm, he said distractedly. Windsor Palace Hotel gave them big business. Almost half the profits they earned in the year came from there. What is the reason they give? You said they were happy doing business with us? Roma peeped discreetly at her watch. You will be late for school, Roma. We'll talk about it this evening. I'm sure there is some misunderstanding. I'll talk to their purchase department. You have a nice day, Sunil said, smiling and waving. Teachers have plenty of work during exam time. Once rooms are allotted to the different classes, a name list is put up, and desks have to be marked with the names of the students, class, and section, along with their roll numbers. Details like the total number of students with their roll numbers, names of absentees, if any, and reading, writing, and submission times are noted on the classroom board. It is a lot of work. Pramila, how long will you be using the computer? Roma asked the French teacher, who was reading about French cuisine on Wikipedia. I have finished, she answered, smiling at Roma. When Roma logged in, her inbox showed two unread mails. One from a colleague at Arctic Air. Jia was getting engaged to Rajiv the following weekend. Wonderful, Roma thought as she read. Jia and Rajiv had been in a relationship since their college days. After numerous breakups and patch ups, they were finally getting engaged and then married next spring. Jia had written that Roma had to promise to attend and witness the historic moment. Roma smiled as she read how much Jia was looking forward to meeting her. She had so much to tell her. Roma replied in 3 lines. She would write at length over the weekend. Congrats, Jia. We'll be back at Arctic Air by end November. Looking forward to meeting you too. Wouldn't miss your wedding for anything in the world. Love. The next mail was from Sandra Matthew. Roma held her breath as she read. Dear Miss Mathur, greetings from the Angels of Earth Trust and Foundation for Orphans. This is regarding adoption of Pia Shekhar, daughter of the deceased Suman Shekhar. This is an urgent reminder that your deadline to submit 5 references is 30th November, failing which we will have to terminate your application and consider the next applicant. There is a good family interested in adopting Pia. They lost their only child in an accident and have been waiting to adopt a girl for the last 4 years. They will give Pia a loving home. Should you wish to reconsider adoption, you may do so at any point till November. Unofficially, I would like to request you to reconsider adoption, keeping in mind that you are single and can always have your own child later. If you still wish to go ahead, as the child welfare officer has informed you, we will need references, one from a reputed organization that works with children, and 4 from esteemed members of society who can vouch you can take good care of the child. Please bear in mind that these references have to be acceptable to the Board of Angels of Earth Trust and Foundation. Since the rest of the legal documents have already been submitted along with the official consent from the now deceased biological mother, Ms. Suman Shekhar, naming you as Pia Shekhar's legal guardian, the reference letters will make the adoption procedure quicker. An official letter will reach you via the post. Please acknowledge the letter once you receive the same. Best, Sandra Matthew, Manager. So I think all of you know that Roma had taken up this job in order to get a reference from here, from the school, that she has been working with children and she will not have a problem डीलिंग विद चिल्ड्रन. वो एक बच्चा, अपने फ्रेंड का बच्चा जिसके बारे में हमने आगे भी पढ़ा था, उसको अडॉप्ट करना चाहती थी और एडॉप्शन एजेंसी का एक कंडीशन था कि रोमा को 5 रेफरेंसेस लेके आना है, क्योंकि उसकी शादी नहीं हुई है और वो सिंगल पेरेंट को बच्चा अडॉप्ट करने नहीं देते हैं। इसलिए वो चाहते हैं कि रोमा अपने 5 रेफरेंसेस सबमिट करे, और उसको एक रिमाइंडर का लेटर आया था अभी। Roma sat staring at the computer screen so intently that she failed to hear the first bell. She did not even notice that the other teachers had rushed out of the staff room. It was only when Pramila tapped her on the shoulder that she came out of her trance. Don't you have a class with the 10th graders? Pramila asked. Yes, yes, I do, Roma replied. Without another word, she logged out and walked from the staff room, carrying her history textbook. Pramila thought Roma must have received bad news. She had never seen Roma so tense and preoccupied before. She hadn't even smiled at her, walked past Pramila as if she was invisible. Roma stood outside her class trying to reorganize her thoughts so that she didn't carry her problems to the students. Everything would be fine, she told herself. She smiled and walked in. She felt absorbed by what felt like a zillion megawatt energy balls sparking in the room. The walls buzzed with arguments about which football team was best, who had the latest PSP, which car gave the maximum mileage, who would be the next roadie, which topic was important for the exam, who could have stolen Alia's chemistry notebook, and whose watch was the coolest. So I just want you to focus on one sentence here, very important for all of us teachers and any employee in any organization for that matter. रोमा को बुरी खबर मिली थी या टेंशन वाली खबर मिली थी, लेकिन उसने क्या किया, उसके बारे में सोचती नहीं रही। जैसे ही वो अपने क्लास की तरफ गई, उसने अपना पूरा मूड पे काम किया, और वो अपने प्रॉब्लम्स बच्चों के सामने नहीं प्रकट करने देना चाह रही थी। ये एक अच्छे एम्प्लॉई की निशानी है। अगर हम क्लास में, ऐसा कोई भी नहीं है जिसके लाइफ में प्रॉब्लम्स नहीं होते हैं, हर रोज कोई ना कोई प्रॉब्लम हो सकता है, लेकिन हम जब अपना काम करने जाते हैं, उन प्रॉब्लम्स को हमारे जितने कलीग्स हैं उनके साथ बैठ के इमीडिएटली उसको डिस्कस करना, या टीचर्स को क्लासरूम में एक ऐसा टेंशन वाला मूड बना के ले जाना सही बात नहीं है। तो हम लोग कहते हैं लीव योर बैगेज बिहाइंड, यानी कि आपके जो प्रॉब्लम्स है उसको छोड़ के आप फ्रेश माइंड के साथ क्लासरूम में एंटर करिए। प्रॉब्लम को के बारे में सोच के या बच्चों को जानने दे के कोई फायदा नहीं होता है। ये एक खास बात मुझे आपसे कहना था कि ये नोटिस जरूर करें। Good morning. Roma waited to be noticed by her students busy with their personal classroom engagements. 5 immediately got up and put their books down. 5 more heads huddled together a moment ago as they cheered a friendly arm wrestling match between Romy and Jeevan rose to their feet. 2 boys who had been playing enthusiastic hand cricket watched by 4 envious others broke off reluctantly and went back to their places. In another 3 minutes, finally, the entire class stood up to wish her. It was almost 3 months since she had joined the school in June. Now she knew the class had not been deliberately ignoring her presence. They had been engrossed in their world of fun and had to be occasionally reminded of classroom etiquette. Good morning. Please sit down. So, are you ready for midterms? She asked as they sat down. The answer that came in a chorus of some yeses and many nos. Roma gave the class their exam room numbers and read out the general rules. So, you know your room numbers and the rules. Study hard and you will do well. Do not use any underhand ways to write answers. Invigilators have strict instructions to check your pockets, socks, shoes, and also your arms and palms. If anything suspicious is found, there will be serious repercussions. Roma warned the class, listening to her with muffled laughter. Miss, the school should feel sorry for students who forget answers. Students are human beings and not smartphones. Minor cheating should be allowed, don't you think? Ajit asked, to the immense amusement of the class, especially the average and below average students who clapped, thinking it a great idea. No cheating, minor or otherwise. What is the point of an exam? It is not to scare you, as you may think. It is to test how much you have understood before you go to the next level, Roma explained. A test is a test, miss. Have you ever cheated in an exam? You must have been a very good student. So, how would you know what an average student goes through during exam time, especially in a math or a social science paper? Shreyas said, very worried about the test. It was history, civics, geography, and disaster management all put together in one fatal package. He wished they had included exam disaster management in the curriculum. I agree, Shreyas. A test is a test. And I wasn't a good student. Roma paused as unbelieving comments rose in the classroom. Students always think their teachers were toppers, she thought, which was so ironical, at least where she was concerned. No, I'm telling you the truth. I wasn't a bright student, but I was hardworking. And although it sounds unbelievable, I was caught cheating once, she revealed to the shocked class. What, miss? Truly? You were caught cheating? Simi asked, thinking what a cool teacher she was. She had been caught cheating in an exam, just the way they often were. Yes, I was. Do you want to hear about that horrifying and embarrassing moment of my life? She asked. Yes, yes, of course we want to. There is nothing horrifying and embarrassing about being caught cheating in an exam. Only brave people do it, Supriya answered, shifting to a vacant bench in front of the class. She was agog to hear the story. I was in class 9 and it was a history exam, I remember. And history was my favorite subject. Roma paused as Rupa jumped out of her seat. How could history be your favorite subject? You have to learn so much, she asked in astonishment. History was my favorite subject because I loved my history teachers. I will teach you how to remember complicated and voluminous information later. It is just the way a computer processes information, logically and scientifically, so that the brain can recall the answers when required. The class was completely fascinated now. Wow, I didn't know there was a scientific way to learn answers. How did you study? Rupa asked. अब देखिए इस कॉन्वर्सेशन को टीचर बच्चों के साथ शेयर कर रही है इस तरीके से कि बच्चे विश्वास करें कि वो भी एक नॉर्मल इंसान ही है और वो भी बच्चों की तरह एक नॉर्मल स्टूडेंट ही थी जब वो स्कूल में थी और उसे इस बात का कोई शर्म नहीं है ना उसे कोई दिखावा करना है कि उसके पास कुछ एक्स्ट्रा ऑर्डिनरी पावर्स थे तो वो बच्चों से जब ऐसी बात करती है तो बच्चे बड़ा इंटरेस्ट भी दिखा रहे हैं ये जानने के लिए कि आप जिस तरीके से पढ़ने को कह रहे हैं एक साइंटिफिक तरीके से क्या साइंटिफिक मेथड भी होता है पढ़ने का तो रोमा कहती है कि यस आई लाइक टू स्टडी हिस्ट्री एंड मैनेज टू गेट गुड मार्क्स एंड the only place I lost marks was in remembering objective answers like dates, names of kingdoms, their capitals, the battles, and yes, Sneha, and treaties that kings kept signing. Those were big challenges to remember, Roma said. The entire class laughed, nodding their heads in agreement. As a student, I always wondered why they had to sign so many treaties when they were almost the same every time. They could have just shaken hands over promises. Different kings made the same mistakes. It was easy for them to sign treaties, but it was no fun for subsequent generations to learn. How unfair! Roma paused as the class laughed again. But it is also important to keep in mind that the past makes our present and the present makes our future. If we know what happened in history, we can prevent the same mistakes from recurring. And without our individual memory, we could literally lose our identity and not know how to interact with others. Historians are always at work, reinterpreting the past, asking new questions, searching for new sources, and finding new meanings in archaic documents in order to bring the perspective of new knowledge and experience to bear on the task of understanding the past. So you see, studying history is very important. But we have to devise ways to make it easier for the brain to remember, Roma explained. So how did you learn? Shreyas asked. He had never thought of teachers studying, they knew everything. To remember difficult terms, names, and places on the map, I developed my own technique. I applied a note making method from English to remember so much information. I would make a list of important dates and stick the paper on my cupboard. I learned important dates by associating them by a method of addition or subtraction with the birthdays of my friends and relatives, or with something of relevance in the family. Like in 1453, the Turks captured Constantinople. It was the Renaissance in Europe. I remember the date by associating it with the year my great grandparents traveled from Boribandar in Bombay to Thane by the first passenger train in 1853, Roma said, smiling. That's a smart way of remembering dates, Simi approved. I remembered places on the map by imagining and associating the dips and curves of a face or a body, a fat waist, a slender arm, an obese figure, a bottleneck, a pouting lip, a bulging stomach, a plump bottom, a guillotined head, Roma recalled humorously. And that's the scientific way of learning? Asked Romy. She was sure their teacher was pulling a fast one on them. How could learning like that be scientific? I didn't know then, of course, that I was trying to learn scientifically. I know that now. A study by David Halstead, who heads Brain Power Learning Group, revealed that when you are exposed to a new idea, it takes 75 millivolts to get the brain's neurons to fire. But when you use the neural connection for that skill or repeat the content a number of times, your brain requires less energy to process the information. Only about 50 millivolts. अच्छा, एक तरीका जो है, यहाँ पे इन्होंने एक नाम दिया है एक ग्रुप का और एक ऑथर का या साइंटिस्ट का. मेरा अपना तरीका है अपना नॉलेज बढ़ाने के लिए. ये जो नाम आते हैं इसको मैं ध्यान से नोट कर लेती हूँ कहीं पे और फिर गूगल करके उसके बारे में और भी पता करने की कोशिश करती हूँ अपने अपने लिए, अपने काम के लिए, अपने नॉलेज के लिए. तो रोमा ने जो वर्ड्स यूज किए हैं यहाँ पे और जो नाम जिस प्रोजेक्ट का या साइंटिस्ट का नाम दिया है उसको अगर आप लोग और भी उसके बारे में जानना चाहते हैं तो आप इसको गूगल कर सकते हैं और पता कर सकते हैं कि ये एग्जैक्टली क्या कहते हैं. थोड़ा थोड़ा सा यहाँ पे जिस्ट शॉर्ट फॉर्म में दिया है, लेकिन आपको अगर ज्यादा मालूमात करनी है तो उस पे आप रेफरेंस कर सकते हैं. Eventually, for knowledge that is used repeatedly or connected to other stored facts that are familiar, the brain develops well formed synapses in which neurons are wedged together. This makes it easy for the brain to store and recall information as required. Roma told the class. Can you be more specific? Asked Ajit. He loved everything about science. Yes, I can. For instance, there are about 7 connectors we use when we join compound sentences. Now, you want your brain to remember all 7 quickly because you have a test tomorrow. They are for, as, nor, but, or, yet, and so. Your brain takes some time to remember them. But if you give it a pattern, let's say fanboys, bingo, the brain remembers all 7 very fast. Each letter stands for a connector. It's just smart learning. If you find this interesting after your exams, read The Brain Guy, David Halstead. Yes, he's called that. He mentions that when he started teaching, he noticed many capable students didn't like learning because they were expected to learn only the way their teacher taught them. So when we forget during exams, it is not just a memory problem or attention related, Ajit asked. The class burst out laughing. No, not entirely. That does not mean you stop paying attention in class and learning, mind you, Roma warned. Halstead says that when students use neural connections to learn something new, the brain requires less effort to process the information. He also says that the brain prefers and also somehow, just give me a second, and also searches for patterns to remember. This makes it easier for the brain to store new information. It starts looking for information it already knows to fit the new information. For example, when you try to learn the 7 connectors without giving a pattern to your brain, it might not be able to store that information efficiently for you to recall later in the exam. To put it in simple words, your brain might just say, the information sounds pretty good, but does not seem to be that relevant, Roma explained. This, there was pin drop silence in the class. That sounds awesome, came from Patricia. Now tell us about the incident when you were caught cheating, Jeevan said, unable to control his curiosity anymore. Roma chuckled in amusement. It seemed the students were trying to find something in common with her. If she had done something they did, something frowned upon, she was, in a way, one of them. Well, it was the history final exam, and we had Miss Andrew as an invigilator, sitting there in her favorite flower print frock. She was quite old, with short cropped salt and pepper hair. She peered through her black horn rimmed spectacles. She could barely keep her eyes open for more than 15 minutes before dozing off. The class was glad Miss Andrew was invigilating. Miss Andrew sounds like our music teacher, Miss Vijay Lakshmi, Arjun said, and then mouthed sorry at Roma's stern expression at that comment. Okay, so I had finished the long and short answers. Of the 8 objectives, I could do 5. My brain must have decided the other 3 weren't quite relevant. Not bad, I thought, after hours and hours of committing facts to memory. There was a girl called Priya who sat in front of me. She was one of the most intelligent kids in class. She always topped in math and science. She remembered the tiniest detail, the most insignificant place on the world map, or the date when a king decided to do nothing. Priya turned round after some time to look at me and whispered, Have you finished? Do you need any help? Miss Andrew was still dozing blissfully with her head lolling over to one side. Roma recalled, the memory still crystal clear. What a great friend and what an awesome invigilator, Shreyas sighed in envy. I really don't know about that, Shreyas, but after 5 minutes, Priya again asked if I wanted to see her answers. Did you see the answers, miss? You should have, Romy insisted, thinking how foolish their teacher had been as a student. I had done quite a good job. 3 empty blanks were not worth taking so much risk, so I refused. There were two reasons. I was inherently honest from childhood, and secondly, I was terrified of Miss Andrew, especially the way she looked over her large black framed spectacles. Her dark grey eyes became stormy and fearful when she was angry. Priya told me there were just 10 minutes to go. She asked why I wasn't looking at the answers I didn't know. Did you look at the answers or not? Shreyas asked, unable to bear the suspense. By that time, I was annoyed with Priya for pestering me. I just couldn't understand why she was so desperate to show me her answers. Then again, 5 minutes later, she turned around and whispered, asking me to see the answers. By now, I was so fed up that I got up from my seat and peered over her shoulder to look at her paper. But you aren't supposed to cheat like that, miss, Shreyas moaned. Did you get caught? Obviously you would if you stood up. He thought they were certainly smarter than their teacher, in this at least. Well, I saw the answers. At the same time, Miss Andrews' power nap short-circuited and she opened her eyes, Roma said, smiling at the groans of genuine sympathy from her students. If I had ever wondered what hell felt like, this was it. Now, what excuse could I give? Who would believe I had been a victim, that I didn't want to see the answers? Miss Andrew took my paper away. I was made to stand outside the examination hall for the rest of the day. As expected, no one believed me. After all, seeing is believing, isn't it? Roma said. I'm sure no one believed you. Anyway, no one believes what students say, Simi said sympathetically. Well, my history teacher called my parents. They were told I had been cheating. I've hated that word ever since. I learned it's much better to say no, Roma said. Okay, we're going to stop over here today. But मैं ये चाहूंगी कि आप लोग सब चाहो तो इस रीडिंग को एक और बार सुन लो और इस पे रिफ्लेक्ट करो और दो चीजों के बारे में रिफ्लेक्ट करना। एक तो इस चैप्टर में जो कहा गया है उसके बारे में तो जरूर आप रिफ्लेक्ट करोगे ही, और एक और है कि क्या आपके क्लास में जब आप स्टूडेंट थे ऐसा कोई इंसिडेंट हुआ जैसे रोमा ने अभी डिस्क्राइब किया है, या एज अ टीचर आपके स्टूडेंट्स को आपने कभी चीटिंग करते हुए देखा है, और अगर देखा है, जरूर देखा होगा, पकड़ा होगा किसी को, तो आपने उसके साथ क्या किया, उस मैटर को कैसे डील किया, ये हम सुनना चाहेंगे अगले क्लास में रिफ्लेक्शन की तौर पे। आप हमें लिख के भी भेज सकते हैं, या जब हम क्लास शुरू करेंगे अगले सप्ताह हम आपसे जानना चाहेंगे कि क्या आपके मन में भी दुविधा थी कि हमने कॉपिंग करना चाहिए, नहीं करना चाहिए, क्या पनिशमेंट आपने किसी को दिया है, किसी के साथ आपने किस तरह से डील किया है। इन सब चीजों के बारे में आप जरा ध्यान से सोचेंगे और हमें लिखकर रिफ्लेक्शंस अपना भेजें तो हमें खुशी होगी। We'll be happy to receive your reflections. I can see we have some youngsters here also. You could also write your reflections and tell us whether you have ever been caught in a dilemma of whether to copy or not to copy, whether you have caught your friends copying, what did you do about it? Have you been caught by the teacher, etc. So that is where we will finish today, hoping to see you all next Saturday with all your reflections, and then we will read ahead the next part of it. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye.